today we are talking about how to choose the right schools to apply to in the US or Canada, or how to choose schools that will fund you. I already got some questions, but feel free to, drop more in the comments and, chat with me while we work on this together. So it is application season every year, from the month of August all the way to December, January, right? A lot of international students are putting applications in, weighing their options, doing their research. If you do want to get funding, I always recommend that your application goes in around November at the latest. Also pay attention to the priority deadlines for like different schools, especially when it comes to funding, because you know how we do. Winnie Student World is different because we tell you how to get the money, right? We tell you how to get an education that doesn't put too much burden on you. So if you're interested in funding, you want to apply early, you want to pick the right school, you want to actually set yourself up for success, because this process is very expensive. Like, let's say the truth, right? Between West for your transcript, going, taking Coke and bread to go and beg. This is sad actually, but let's laugh about it. To beg the universities to send your transcript, right? Taking the GRE, taking the TOEFL, taking all the exams you need to take, and then applying to schools. Like, this is an intensive, expensive process, and so you want to do it right so that you don't do it multiple times. Even though if you have to do it multiple times, it's not the end of the world. Let's go ahead and jump right in. First question: how do I choose the right school for my course of study? And so the first thing is kind of list out your priorities, right? Whether you do that mentally or you do that on paper. I'm a pen and paper kind of girl, right? Like, I like to, my thoughts, if you see my work table now, it's made up of just notes, just rewriting. So whatever works for you, right? Whether it's on your phone or something, like, what's important to you, right? Because the right school could mean different things to different people. Do you want a big university that has like 50,000 people, a lot of clubs, a lot of organizations? Or are you like me that you want the intimate kind of small scale, you know the people, they know you, everybody in your class is a familiar face, right? Do you want to go to a rural place? Rural means, maybe not with a big city. There's a lot of parking space available. I just moved to a big city or do you want like a big city where you get to like do more, be more social, or have more experiences? For some people, being in a big city is better for their course, right? For example, if you're studying, something related to IT. If you're studying something related to IT and you want to be at a place that has, the big companies, maybe you can do an internship with them. Some universities even already have partnerships with those companies so that they send their students there for internships. That may be important to you, or it may not be. Do you want to go to a warm place? Do you want to go to a cold place? Is weather or temperature not a consideration for you, right? All these things actually matter both to you, but they also matter to your funding prospects. And I'll talk more about that. So once you list out your priorities, because the truth is, there are certain courses that are not offered by every single university, but a lot of universities offer a lot of the same courses, right? If you put in masters in chemistry or PhD in chemistry, or a bachelor's in biology, or a master's in mathematics or data science, like, there are going to be a lot of hits for those schools. And so listing out the things that you're interested in, right, helps you start to filter, right, where you want to go. Now, I do have a video on YouTube. I encourage you to go check it out. I'm going to put the link on, our story when we're done, that talks about like some things you can start to think about if you want a school to fund you, right? And so that is your fit with the school, right? You want to study, let's say you want to study a master's in biotechnology, right? If they have a program in biotechnology, are you interested in the research that they do? Do you have a faculty mentor that you could reach out to, right? What are some things that they have prioritized that are in line with your application or what you want to accomplish, right? Those are some other things to keep in mind as you navigate that. So let's rein in it. Once you make a list of what's important to you in picking those schools, armed with that list, go on that Google search. There are so many websites. I feel like Google is so underrated. I get a lot of questions where people are like, how do I do this? How do I do that? And I do provide directions, but at the end of the day, if you put in those same questions on Google, you will get like some lead, right? So start with, universities that offer a bachelor's in this, or a PhD in this, or a master's in this. You get some hits. Go past the first page. This is one mistake a lot of people make. Go past the first page, right? Go to page 1, go to page 2, go to page 3, right? Because you know the way Google works. Google works with, the websites that people go to the most is going to be on the front page, or the universities that have paid for Google ads will be on the first page. So there's so much gold in the subsequent pages that you could miss if you just restrict your search to the first page, right? And so, yeah, you're going to see Harvard, you're going to see Cornell, you're going to see Johns Hopkins, those ones, every Google search, they come on there. But that's because of multiple reasons. Page 2 would have so many great schools. Page 3 would have so many great schools. There are blogs and websites that have listed certain programs at universities. They give you a starting point, to look, right? Then you start to compare those schools that you're finding against what you're looking at, right? So for example, if the code is not your friend, right? You don't want to go to Vermont for school, right? Or the heat is not your friend, maybe Arizona is not where you want to be, right? And so those are some things you can start to like weed out with different things. But don't stop there, right? Go and check out the programs of the different universities. This is also another thing that is very underrated. Network, right? There will be information sessions or Zoom sessions or like contact forms, right? Want more information, fill out this form. Put your email, put your name, right? Because guess what? Somebody from the program will reach out to you and say, hey, XYZ, I see you're interested in this program or in our university. Do you have any questions? Do you want to jump on a Zoom call with me and talk about this more? Those things they're good because your FaceTime with the schools, introducing yourself, your passion, your interest, getting to know them, those things start to add up to your application. And so when that program or when that office gets your application, they've met you. The person probably reviewing your application remembers how nice and sweet and bubbly you were and how passionate you were. And they're already thinking, wow, we really need to get the students. They have something special, right? And so kind of to summarize it, make a list of what you want, what you're interested in. Armed with that list, go do a Google search. Your Google search could take a week, 2 weeks, whatever. Don't put pressure on yourself. Take it one step at a time. Every school you find, check out their program, right? Look at some other things that are important to you. For those people who are like, I may not get a scholarship, so I need something that I can afford. Great. Look at their tuition. Do they have payment plans? Do they have other opportunities to support students? Those are some of the things you can note down in what you're looking for, questions you can ask them, right? Complete those forms on their website, right? Email people you see there. Dear admission office, dear Mr., Miss, whatever they want to be addressed at, ask, or, dear doctor, this, I'm interested in this program. I see you're the program director or program coordinator. This is who I am. Do you mind, meeting with me for 15 minutes to clarify some things about the program? Gradually, you'll start to identify a solid list of schools you want to apply to. I recommend that when you're applying to schools, blind applications are no longer the ish, right? You want to have some kind of contact with the school before. Attend their events, email people, meet with them, ask questions. By the time they get your application, when possible, which should be a lot of times, let that not be the first time you're interacting with the program or the people in the school or the office. That is how you increase your chances of getting into a good school and potentially getting a good funding package that would help you get to school. So this is a summary of this. This question is actually really good. So I'm going to put it down, apply to good schools or the right schools as a video that I'm going to do sometime in the future, because then we'd have like the whole video to like dissect it very well and these points be listed out. But for the person that asked this question, I hope this is a good start or a good way to kind of move forward. As always, send us questions or DMs, as you're applying, and if there's any way we can guide you, we'll be happy to. All right, next question. I get confused with planning and documenting my application across schools. Is there a guidance system for that? A lot of times people just do their own thing. Excel sheets, tables, just kind of do something that works for you. But we are working on something at Winnie Student World, and we want to launch that in the next few weeks, and it is going to be free. And that would be something you can download and hopefully help you plan your application. So there's no actual systematic thing available, except maybe there's a program you pay for, or you pay for a service. But we're working on something for free that would help a lot of students tackle this, reining it in. Like, you're going nuts. How many schools did I look at? What are the schools I'm interested in? Where do I start from? Where do I go to? What are the requirements for each schools? How do I keep track? We're working on something for that. But to answer your question, they may exist out there. Not sure of one that I could give you a link right now, and so we're creating one that would help you kind of take advantage of that. So stay tuned for that. All right. How do we know the right cities and schools to apply to suit our personal needs? So this kind of ties into the first question that was asked about how to actually choose the right school, right? When you're trying to address a need that you have, the very important step is to identify the need you're trying to address, right? What is the need? Is it weather? Is it cost? Is it a certain kind of program? Maybe you want to do a bachelor's in engineering and a minor in robotics, or you want to do a bachelor's in biology, but you want to do a minor in sports education, right? Like, what are your needs that you want met? Because once you outline them, then you can tailor your search to those needs, and that will help you get what you need. And so the first point, I talked a lot about how to choose the right school. The second, how to suit our personal needs. That's what you need to do. Identify the needs, right? It happens to all of us, including me. It happens to me too, right? We are like, I need to do this, or I want to accomplish this, right? And then there's no systematic process that you're using to make sure that need is addressed. So you almost feel like everything you're looking at falls short of what you need or what you want to accomplish. And so the best way to kind of tackle that is, this is what I need, and this is what I'm going to include in my search, right? And so that way, once I'm looking at the school, they already have a minimum requirement, and then I could add other things to it, right? There's nothing you cannot search from Google. If you put schools that are close to a beach, it will pop up. Schools that are in small towns, universities that are in big cities, universities that have a lake beside them, universities that are surrounded by parks and gardens. There's nothing you can put. So outline those needs, right? And then use that to tailor your search. That's how to do that. All right. In my DS 160 form, for those that don't know this, that's the form you fill out to apply for a US visa, right? So when you've gotten, your admission, hopefully you've gotten funding packages, and you're ready to go to the embassy, this is the form that you fill out before you book your appointment. All right. In my DS 160 form, I stated the point of contact as my brother's address. I'm only realizing that I should have used the school's address instead. Okay. That shouldn't be a problem. If you're asked about your brother, which may come up in your interview, just be prepared to answer questions like, how did they get to the US? What do they do in the US? What is their current status in the US? Questions like that. You just need to be able to answer those questions. And hopefully there isn't some complication in answering that question that you should be worried about. What I mean by that is, if you do have a sibling that is out of status in the US, there have been cases where that could impact your application. So hopefully that's not the case. But if your brother is in the US legally, doing what he's supposed to do, kind of going about his business, and, that's fine. He could be your point of contact. Just make sure that you have the answers to the questions that will come up, regarding who he is and what he does in the US. So that you should be fine. Okay, but for other people watching, your point of contact in the US, especially when you're going to school, a lot of times it's best for that to be the school. So use the International Student Office address and use your DSO's email and phone number as your point of contact, because you're going to school as an international student and your DSO is the person who is responsible or who should know what you're up to, your whereabouts, and the things you're doing, so you can use them as your point of contact. All right. Good afternoon, ma. Good afternoon. The U.S. Embassy denied my emergency appointment request. I'm so sorry about that. Do I still have hope to an appointment before the 20th, or should I defer to spring? So technically, this question was asked a while ago. I'm guessing the 20th is 20th of August. And we are already in September. And so I hope we answered this via DM. If we didn't, my sincere apology. But I'm going to answer this in general for what people can keep in mind when they are, when they are applying for US visas and dealing with the whole emergency appointment system. So for those who are wondering what an emergency appointment is, let's talk about that. So right now there is this, I don't know if the word is backlog or just, it's hard to get an appointment date to go to the embassy right now. In a lot of places actually. And so what happens is you get into the application portal or the application system, right? And then you pick the earliest available date, which right now could be in 2024. It's really wild out there, right? And then you pick the earliest appointment date. And then after you schedule that appointment, an option, I think it's to your left. Forgive me if I'm wrong, but I think it's to your left. If I remember correctly, there'll be like a bunch of options, maybe reschedule appointment, cancel appointment, emergency appointment, right? You then click that, and then there will be a whole kind of request form or request system for an emergency appointment. That is when you put the, this is the date I've picked, but I really need to be in the US before this time, right? And, you put your supporting documentation, which is usually your offer of admission, your I-20, you could combine that into one PDF file, right? Maybe your start date. You could even add, you've registered for classes, so if you have a schedule, print that out, but just make it like one PDF file, right? If it's too big, there's software online that you could use to compress the PDF file to the size that it needed to be, and then you upload it as your, proof or documentation to support your request. So you're essentially saying, there's no date available for the next year and a half, but I need to be at, the United States before this time. And so this is my reason. I have an offer of admission. I have my I-20. I've paid my service fee. I have registered for classes. If you've paid any fees, include that. My parent or, my guardian, whoever is sponsoring, has paid, my tuition, has paid part of my tuition. And so therefore, I would like to request an appointment before this date that I picked so that I could be in the US in time to start my education. So this is pretty much what you will put in the description, right? What I have said in your own words, correct grammar, because you can't be going to school and be speaking, If English is not your first language, I definitely understand that. But if English is something that, you speak every day, just make an extra effort to make sure that you're communicating clearly, regardless in the, form. All right. And then when you do all of that, you submit. So what happens is on the back end, somebody from the US, embassy will review this application or review this form. And if it adds up to them, they would email you and say, come on this date, right? At this time, show up and we'll do your interview, right? That's usually how the emergency appointment process happens. It is getting a lot more complicated, and I'm thinking, my guess, I don't work at the embassy, this is entirely my guess and opinion, I'm thinking it's because of the amount or the number of people who are also trying to use the system to schedule an appointment. And so right now, if you're not careful, if you don't fill out the form correctly, if you don't have strong supporting documentation, if certain things don't add up well, they will deny your emergency request. I have seen more denials for emergency requests this year than have ever seen. Like back in the day, it was something that was pretty straightforward, but right now it's not the case. And so the way to avoid denial one of the ways to avoid denial of your emergency request or your request for an emergency date is, number one, read the instructions of the form, right? Those things change every now and then, and they put like additional things to keep in mind, etc. Just pay attention. And I'm saying this from a place of, it happens to me too. You read something and you skip a not or do not, or you skip a do this, right? You just kind of read generally or blanketly, whatever the term is, and then you miss something important you're supposed to put. Do what they say do, don't do what they say don't do, because they use those things as quick screen outs for people who do things wrongly. They don't even bother reviewing it, right? And so if you don't complete the form correctly, fill out every single part they ask you to fill, include what they ask you to include, do it in the format they ask you to do. If you don't do that, you are setting yourself up for that request to be rejected, right? The next thing is supporting documentation, right? A lot of people make this mistake too. Add things that will help your case. Your I-20, like I said, your admission letter. If you've registered for your classes, Control P on your computer, download that, save that as a PDF. If somebody has paid your tuition, or if you've paid your tuition or paid any fees, Control P, print that out or save that as a PDF file. Combine that together and show your strong proof that, you've done all you need to do and more to start school at this time, and so you would like to travel. And then afterwards, proofread, reread, make sure that you've done everything you're supposed to do the right way, and submit the emergency request or the request for an emergency appointment, right? Now, let's say you do all this right and they still deny your request. There's another point I want to add to this emergency request. Make sure you are doing this for your student visa. I don't think right now they allow that for visiting visa or any other visa. I think maybe healthcare might be something they consider, but make sure you're doing this for student visa, and make sure that you don't add somebody else's name. Like, all those applications, some people do it, right, where they apply for school and then your siblings are traveling with you for vacation, your mom or your dad is going to go with you to help you settle in, things like that, and then you kind of lump everybody in for that emergency request because you scheduled everything together. You can do that with the system where it's like, okay, how many people are coming with you for this appointment? And you list sister A, brother B, parent A, parent B, and everything is lined up. And then when you're applying for the emergency appointment, you are all included. They will deny your application. So if you're in that category, your family should do their visiting visa, right? And you do yours separately so that you can apply and request an emergency appointment date as a person who is going to school to study. Because I don't think they do that for visiting visas, and if your application is lumped together with that, that may be the reason that they deny you. All right, so you've done all these things, right? And then it still doesn't go your way. One thing to keep in mind is you are allowed one request for an emergency appointment per MRV fee. So the MRV fee is the money you pay. I think it's $160. Is the money you pay to open up the appointment system for the US Embassy. And so you're allowed one request per fee, right? If you want to make another request after they have denied you, contact the embassy, tell them that they denied you and you want to pay another MRV fee to refill that application or to complete that application or to do it again. So that's something to keep in mind. Now, if this is cutting too close, like the person in this, question, defer your admission to spring, right? Speaking of applying to the right schools, in our current climate with how things are going, right? Everything has been just thrown upside on its head since the pandemic. Like, things have been just harder to do, more complicated. A lot of systems are still recovering from that backlog of the things that happened, and so people are still trying to figure out what the new normal is. And so one of the things you should keep in mind as you're applying to schools is to make sure that this school would not only allow you to defer your admission, but if you do have any funding, right? If they give you a scholarship, they give you some kind of, aid, something that if for any reason you can't come one semester and you choose to defer the admission by 1 or 2 semesters, you don't lose that scholarship, or at least they will reconsider you for the same scholarship the next time. Those are 2 important things to keep in mind, because you can defer your admission and lose your scholarship, or you can defer your admission and also defer your scholarship. That is, your package is still complete whenever you are able to show up. So very important. I hope the person who asked this question is here. Please send us a message if you're still having difficulties, and we could listen to your unique situation and hopefully help you figure out the next steps. All right. I need advice on how to apply for admission to school in the US. All right. There's a whole video on this. So is this graduates? If this is graduates, there's a whole series on this on YouTube. If this is undergraduate, there's a video on this, right? Let's start with undergraduates. For undergraduates, you need whatever result you use as your finished high school or finished secondary school, right? If you're from West African countries, that's WAEC or WASC, depending on what you call it. I'm so used to calling it WAEC, but WAEC is the actual exam body. I think WASC is the exam itself, right? If you're from East African countries, it looks different. If you're from other countries around the world, just that exam or final whatever that shows you're done with secondary school or high school, right? You would also need whatever is considered high school, your transcript. In Nigeria, that is SS1 to 3, right? And your WAEC results. For some other countries, that may differ. But whatever is your high school in your country, you need the transcript for those years, right? So proof that you finished high school, that could be an exam, a certificate, your transcript for high school. If this is undergrad, SAT, ACT, those are standardized tests. A lot of schools have made that optional. I still recommend that you take it if you have the resources to take it. The reason for that is it still really increases your chances of getting funding, right? But if you cannot afford to take it, it's just making sure that the schools that you're going to choose do not consider that for funding at all. Because the school could tell you, you don't need to apply with SAT or ACT, but then they won't consider you for funding or other opportunities if your result or your transcript does not meet a certain threshold without those scores. So just something to clarify. If you're from a country that is not English speaking, right? If you're from a country that the official language is not English and your education was not in English, you would need to take some sort of English proficiency exam, right? There are quite a few of them. There's a TOEFL. If you're coming to the US, there's the IELTS, which is more British based. There's Duolingo, which currently is my recommendation. Like, I hope more schools jump on that because it's cheaper. You can take it at home. It's good, right? And so you want to take those exams if you're from a country that is not English speaking. If you're from a country that is English speaking, do this before you take those exams. The thing to do is email the school and say, hello, admission committee. Good morning, Mr., Miss, whoever the person to address is. I am from a country whose official language is English, right? Or I'm from Nigeria, or I'm from Ghana, wherever you're from, and our official language is English. All my education was in English, and all my results and transcripts are in English. Yeah. Do I still need to take the English proficiency exam? You'll get one of 2 responses. Number 1, nope, you don't. You qualify, we're going to waive that for you, right? You don't need to take that exam. Or you could get, hey, send us your documents. Let's double check if it meets our standards, and then we'll let you know whether you need to take these exams or you need to take one of these exams or not. Okay, we attach those as a PDF file and send to them, and they can make that determination. The third answer you could get is, nope, everybody that is not from the United States is required to take some kind of English proficiency exam. Which those universities, why though? Like, why? Okay, so you get one of those 3 responses, and then you do as they're requested, right? And then you have your personal statements, undergraduate, you could have a resume, right? And then whatever else the school requires for you to do. But once you gather those general basic documents, right, you can kind of build up from there. If you're a graduate, it gets a little interesting, right? It depends on if you're doing master's or PhD. If you're doing master's, you might need to take the GRE depending on the school. You might need to take the English proficiency exam depending on your country and the school, right? Your personal statement is a lot more technical because now you're saying, okay, I have a bachelor's degree. This is why I need to do a master's and this is what I want to do with it. And this is how I've prepared for this, right? You would at this point have a resume or a lot of times a CV, which is a lot more detailed than a resume, right? You might need to write a research proposal or a research statement. You might need to write some other kinds of statements. There are quite a number of them. You might need to do that. Same for PhD, but the difference with PhD is you might need to write maybe a more elaborate research proposal, or sometimes, a lot of times, research proposals are not even required for masters, just for PhD. You might also need to produce some kind of writing sample for your PhD. Have you published a paper, your thesis, things like that you might need to produce as part of your application. And then some schools will have additional requirements, maybe like a video, essay, or other things that you can kind of throw in there to boost up your application, and then you build as you go. This information is loaded on our website, on our YouTube page, everywhere, right? Shout out to all the people who have sent me messages on WhatsApp saying, hey, I saw your video, I like your video, can you help me with this? Plenty love, right? You could do the same. Watch those videos, read those posts, and then if you have questions, come ask us, right? We'll let you know what else you need to do or other ways to kind of, go about it. All right, so that's all the questions I have here. But I want to circle back to our main topic, which is choosing the right school, right? And so we've talked about your needs. Another thing to consider is what does the school want? Are you who they're looking for, right? Do they want more diverse students? Do they have a strategic plan that includes what you're interested in? Is this school passionate about like women in science, right? Or are they trying to build up a certain thing? The more you align yourself with what a school is looking for and what they need, and communicate that in your application, your personal statements or whatever essays they have there, the more likely you are to have a good match with a school, both for admission and funding, right? I've said this before, I'm going to say it again and wrap up with this if I don't have any questions. Make sure you network with your school before applying. Attend their events. Email faculty members. Schedule meetings with the admission committee. Ask questions, right? Get to know them. Tell them about yourself. Those things are not benign. If the school is not open to doing that, then that's fine. Email, introduce yourself, tell them you're interested in this, ask some clarifying questions, and then go ahead and submit your application. But if they say, do you want to Zoom with us? Say yes. Pick a time. Meet the people behind the scene. Let them put a face to your application. Because when they see, especially if you have, beautiful names like us, right? Where like there are not that many people that are going to have that name. Like you're probably going to be the only person bearing that name or that last name. You will not be forgotten easily. And so make those appointments, network with them, spend time with them before you complete your application. All right, I will stop here. We're supposed to wrap up around 1 o'clock. It was nice spending time with you all today, and I hope you have a lovely weekend, and I will see you again in one of the videos that I feature in. All right, talk to you soon.